Hey y'all, I'm Stacy with SouthernBite.com. Let me show you how to make my slow cooker corned beef and cabbage. If you love this video, do me a favor, like the video and then subscribe to our channel. That way you'll get notified every time we post great new content. All right, let's jump right in. Now, corned beef and cabbage is one of those things that's super popular around St. Patrick's Day, especially in the States. But it's one of those dishes that you really can make a great dinner any time of the year. And when you use the slow cooker, it's surprisingly easy. Now, one of the things that people often complain about with corned beef and cabbage is that it doesn't have tons of flavor. I'm gonna show you some tricks that I've learned over the years making this that's gonna make this super flavorful. Now to start, I've got a 6 to 7 quart slow cooker here. I'm gonna spray this with a little non-stick cooking spray just to make the cleanup process a little bit easier. You could also use one of those super easy plastic liners if you wanted to. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna build this in layers. That way everything cooks at the right temperature in the right amount of time. To start, I've got some baby potatoes here. Now I like to use these small potatoes with the skin on because what's gonna happen is because of the slow and low and long cook time, potatoes often have a tendency to cook to mush. When we choose potatoes that are less than 2 inches, that are whole with the skin on, the skin's gonna hold these together. It's gonna provide a little structure here so these don't quite cook to mush. So I've got, this is probably about 8, 9, maybe 10 potatoes. They're gonna go right in the bottom of my slow cooker here. Next, I've got about 1.5 cups of baby carrots. Do you have to use baby carrots? No. Baby carrots are just big carrots shaved down to this shape. You could also use whole carrots that you cut into about 1.5 inch chunks if you wanted to. Again, this is about 1.5 cups. Next, I've got about 2 ribs of celery here that I've trimmed and cut into about 3-inch pieces. Now, if you're one of those folks that don't love the stringy texture that celery often has, you can actually peel celery. Just use your vegetable peeler, turn it over to the back, scrape down the back, and you can peel most of that stringy stuff right off. This is going right in here with our potatoes and our carrots. Next, I've got 1 onion, either a white onion or a yellow onion will work. I've peeled and quartered that, and I'm just gonna pop that right in here. We're just kind of working all of this into the bottom of our slow cooker. And I've got 3 cloves of garlic. If you want to smash them, you can do that. But you know, we're going to cook this for like 9 hours. It's going to cook to pieces, so in there going to go too. Let's talk about our corned beef here. Now this is a flat cut corned beef brisket that comes vacuum sealed with the liquid right here. Now this liquid might look a little gross, but here's the thing. There is tons of flavor in this liquid. Lots of recipes are gonna tell you to take this out, discard that liquid, and rinse this. When you do that, you're rinsing all this flavor away. If you're watching your sodium intake, you can totally do that and rinse it off. But again, you're sacrificing some flavor. I picked up a package several years ago and noticed on the package that it said to include the liquid that comes in that package. And honestly, it was a game changer for me because what happens is that all that flavor gets imparted on all these vegetables and all your meat. So we're gonna use it this time. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the end of this package open. You're gonna want about a 5 to 6 pound brisket for this. Now, with all of this is all about having the right ratios of vegetable to meat to liquid. So you want to try to stick as close to this recipe as possible. Inside this packet here, we've also got some pickling spice. We're going to deal with that in just a second. What we're going to do is we're going to put our brisket right on top of our vegetables with the fat side up. And of course, we included all of that liquid that was in the package right in there. Now, it's important to note that red liquid that's in the package is not blood. It's actually water from the meat, as well as some of that pickling liquid. What gives it that red tinge of color is actually called myoglobin. That's a protein found in red meat that gives it its red color, so obviously it's gonna turn that liquid a little reddish pink as well. But it's not blood, so don't worry. Now, here's that little packet of pickling spice that was in there. But you can see it's not very much. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this, but we're gonna add some more pickling spice to this. So I'm adding this packet right to the top of our meat. And then I've got about 2 additional tablespoons of pickling spice. You can find this in the canning section or in the spice section of your grocery store, because we're gonna give this even more flavor. And I'm just gonna sprinkle this right over the top. Now this is totally optional, but I think it really amps up this dish and gives it a ton more flavor. Now we're gonna need to give this whole slow cooker a little liquid because, as you know, a slow cooker is a slow, moist cooking environment. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some beef broth to this. The exact amount that you're gonna need is gonna depend on the number of vegetables that you used, the size of the brisket that you used, and the size of your slow cooker. Typically 2 to 4 cups is about what you're gonna need. You're gonna wanna fill the slow cooker until just where the beef broth is just right at the top edge of your brisket. Now, as you're adding this to this, make sure that you're not washing all of those pickling spices off the top of your meat. This is gonna go in our slow cooker on low for 8 to 9 hours. Now, of course, we haven't talked about cabbage yet. The cabbage is going to go in the last hour of cooking. If we were to add that cabbage now, it's gonna just cook to mush. About an hour is all we need to get that cabbage cooked all the way through. Now, the goal here is to cook our beef to about 195 degrees. Brisket has a tendency to be really tough because of all the connective tissue. At 195 degrees, all that collagen is gonna break down and make this super easy to slice. So again, on low, 8 to 9 hours. All right, after about 8 hours, it's time to add our cabbage. Now, you can see here that as this cooked, that brisket's gonna shrink down a lot. So you wanna make sure that you're gonna buy one that's large enough to feed your family. Now, to add our cabbage, what I've done here is I've taken cabbage, small to medium cabbage. I've trimmed the bottom off of the stem, but left the core in there because that's gonna help to hold this together. I've sliced this into about 1-inch wedges, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna stick this down in the liquid, the broth, that's around our brisket. And that residual heat that's in there and the last hour of cooking is gonna cook this cabbage all the way through. All right, once we have all of our cabbage in there, I'm gonna use a spoon just to kind of press it down into that broth to try to get as much of it covered by that liquid as possible. Then we're gonna put the lid back on, and this is gonna cook for about an hour or until the cabbage is tender to your liking. All right, so after about an hour, that cabbage is gonna be nice and tender, but of course, you know, if you like it a little bit softer than that, you can cook it a little bit longer. I'm gonna take the meat out. Carefully, I'm gonna use 2 big spoons here to do this and transfer it to a cutting board, because what we're gonna wanna do is slice this against the grain. Now, of course, we cooked it to that 195 degree temperature, so it technically will even shred at this point. But if we want it to look nice, we're gonna slice it against the grain. I'm gonna show you how to do that. Then we're gonna transfer all of the cabbage and vegetables to a serving plate. All right, when it comes time to slice the meat, let me show you a little trick. Now, my recipe and most recipes that use a brisket like this are gonna call for you to slice the meat against the grain. Well, what does that mean? Well, let me show you quickly. So I've removed the fat cap from the top of this brisket, and if you look closely, you can see the muscle fibers as they run this way. So what we want to do is we want to cut this way, because if we cut with these muscle fibers, it's going to be very tough. If we cut against them and break them into little tiny pieces, it's going to pull right apart. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use my tongs to hold the meat because it's still a little warm, but we're just going to slice right across that grain. Now, because we've cut against the grain, let me just show you how easy this tears apart. See? Because we cut those long fibers into little pieces, this just pulls apart. Now, just to show you what the difference is, I'm gonna cut with the grain on this side for one piece, and let me show you just how hard it is to pull that apart. Serve up your vegetables, put the meat right over the top, and this meal is ready to serve. Folks, you can find the full easy recipe by heading over to the website at southernbite.com. Just search for slow cooker corned beef and cabbage. Y'all enjoy.